Hello and welcome to This Date in History, aka TDH. This show is all about the events that occurred today in years past, both recognized by actual historians, but mainly things I personally find intriguing enough for me to bring to you. The source of this information comes from the smart device application on this day. The music in the background is Freefall by Audioscribe, which I found on the YouTube channel No Copyright Sounds, aka NCS. For links to the app, music, and anything else potentially interesting, check the underbar. Now let's get on with the show, shall we? Today is Wednesday, aka Wednesday, August 24th, 2016. In 2010, in San Fernando, Tamaulipas, Mexico, 72 illegal immigrants were murdered by Los Zetas, the bodies of which were later found by Mexican authorities. In 2006, the International Astronomical Union, aka IAU, redefined the term planet, thus mislabeling the dwarf planet Pluto. Pluto is a full planet, you idiots! In 1998, the first radio frequency identification, aka RAFD, human implantation was tested in the United Kingdom. In 1995, Microsoft 95 was released to the public in North America. In 1994, the initial accord between Israel and the PLO about partial self-rule of the Palestinians on the West Bank came into force. In 1991, Ukraine declared itself independent from the Soviet Union. In 1989, Tadeusz Mazowiecki was chosen as the first non-communist prime minister in Central and Eastern Europe. Also in 1999, Colombian drug barons declared total war on the Colombian government. In 1981, Mark David Chapman was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison for murdering John Lennon. In 1967, the Youth International Party, led by Abby Hoffman, temporarily disrupted trading at the New York Stock Exchange, aka NYSE, by throwing dollar bills from the viewing gallery, causing trading to cease as brokers scrambled to grab them. What a sad, shallow, and meaningless existence those people must be in to act like the homeless. In 1963, during the Buddhist crisis, as a result of the Zhao Loi Pagoda raids, the U.S. State Department cabled the United States Embassy in Saigon to encourage the Army of the Republic of Vietnam's generals to launch a coup against President Ngo Dinh Diem if he did not remove his brother Ngo Dinh Nhu. In 1954, the Communist Control Act went into effect, which outlawed the United States Communist Party. Which begs the question, what happened to freedom? You know what type of country makes a move like that? A fascist one. In 1950, Edith Sampson became the first black U.S. delegate to the United Nations. In 1949, the treaty that created the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, aka NATO, went into effect. In 1944, during World War II, Allied troops began the attack on Paris. In 1942, during World War II, during the Battle of the Eastern Solomons, Japanese aircraft carrier Ryujo was sunk, and the U.S. carrier USS Enterprise was heavily damaged. In 1941, Adolf Hitler ordered the cessation of Nazi Germany's systematic T4 euthanasia program of the mentally ill and the handicapped due to protests. However, these murders continued for the remainder of the war. In 1936, the Australian and Arctic Treaty was created. In 1933, the Crescent Limited train derailed in Washington, D.C. after the bridge it was crossing was washed out by the 1933 Chesapeake-Potomac hurricane. In 1932, Amelia Earhart became the first woman to fly across the United States non-stop from Los Angeles to Newark, New Jersey. In 1931, the United Kingdom's second Labour government resigned, paving the way for the formation of the UK national government. Also in 1931, France and the Soviet Union signed a neutrality no-attack treaty. In 1914, during World War I, the Battle of Sur ended as the first Allied victory in the war. In 1909, workers started pouring concrete for the Panama Canal. In 1891, Thomas Edison patented the motion picture camera. I wonder who he stole that from. In 1875, Captain Matthew Webb became the first person to swim the English Channel. In 1857, the Panic of 1857 began, setting off one of the most severe economic crises in United States history. In 1821, the Treaty of Cordoba was signed in Cordoba, which is Veracruz today, in Mexico, which concluded the Mexican War of Independence from Spain. In 1815, the modern Constitution of the Netherlands was signed. In 1814, British troops invaded Washington, D.C. and set fire to the city, including the White House and Capitol. In 1781, during the American Revolutionary War, a small force of Pennsylvania militia was ambushed and overwhelmed by a Native American group, forcing George Rogers Clark to abandon his attempt to attack Detroit. In 1690, Job Charnock of the East India Company established a factory in Calcutta. This event is formally considered the founding of the city, even though the Calcutta High Court ruled in 2003 that the city has no birthday. In 1682, William Penn received the area that is now the state of Delaware and added it to his colony of Pennsylvania. In 1662, the Act of Uniformity required England to accept the Book of Common Prayer. In 1608, the first official English representative to India landed in Surat. In 1456, the printing of the Gutenberg Bible was completed. In 1349, 6,000 Jews were murdered in Mainz after having been blamed for the bubonic plague. In 1215, Pope Innocent III declared the Magna Carta invalid. In 455, the Vandals, led by King Genseric, began to plunder Rome. Pope Leo I requested Genseric to not destroy the ancient city nor murder its citizens. He did agree and the gates of Rome were opened, however the Vandals looted a great amount of treasure. In 410, the Visigoths under King Alaric I began to pillage Rome. In 394, the Graffito of Esmet Akhom, the latest known inscription in Egyptian hieroglyphs, was written. And in 79, Mount Vesuvius erupted. The cities of Pompeii, Herculaneum, and Stabiae were buried in volcanic ash. However, the traditional date is not set in stone, pun intended, and many scholars believe the volcano instead erupted on October 24th. Births: Dave Chappelle, 1973, Yasser Arafat, 1929, Gaylord Dubois, 1899. And that concludes the show. Once again, check the underbar for any links you may be interested in. Don't forget to look right and left at every intersection, especially if you're playing Pokemon Go. You can also rate 5 thumbs and subscribe if you do so, please. For your dose of past events daily, I am Xander, and you are you. Toodles!